Hello friends and welcome to our channel. Our today's video is about man gets ill on a plane before 20 other passengers decide to intervene. But before we start, please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell and smash that like button. We really appreciate your continuous support. Whether it's your first time on a plane or you're the queen of frequent flyer miles, getting sick while trapped thousands of feet above the ground stinks. With limited cabin space and no guarantee of a doctor on board, you're often forced to stew in your discomfort for a long time. In March of 2017, one experienced flyer found himself in that dreaded position. But by a bizarre fluke, the universe stepped in to offer him a helping hand. Tom McKay felt right at home soaring through the clouds. As a retired U.S. Air Force colonel, he was in the pilot seat for decades as far back as the Vietnam War. But in his retirement, Tom preferred to kick back and just be a passenger. He and his wife Maggie were excited for all the adventures in store now for them that they had the time. In March of 2017, the happy couple set off on a cruise. They sipped fruity cocktails poolside and bronzed in the sun. Rejuvenated by their sabbatical, but ready to head back home to their family in Texas, Maggie and Tom packed their suitcases and boarded a plane. Their flight would be a 1-hour skip from Atlanta to Houston. Simple as pie. Couple settled in, eager to get home and share the details of their trip with family and friends. For the first half of their flight, it was smooth sailing. Tom and Maggie were comfortably nestled in their seats. But then Maggie noticed an alarming change in Tom. Tom clammed up. He was perspiring and lightheaded. Nevertheless, the Vietnam vet tried to ignore his strange and sudden discomfort and tough it out. But his condition worsened fast. Tom lost consciousness and slumped in his seat. Immediately, Maggie jumped into action. "I went into panic mode," she said. "I started yelling, 'I need help, I need a doctor.'" Tom was out cold, and Maggie, who was an experienced nurse, knew he was in serious trouble. In the seconds, all she could do was pray that someone would be able to assist her. The plane was still in midair, with 30 minutes remaining until they were due to land in Houston. For Tom, the stakes were as high as they could get. Literally. Thankfully, fate was on the couple's side. A healthcare professional stood up and quickly took action. But it didn't stop there. Another healthcare professional joined his side, and then another. A whopping 25 people came to help. Well, odd, there was an explanation. They attended an annual medical conference at the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology in Atlanta and were traveling home. Together, 5 of the responding volunteers came to Tom's aid. They worked to stabilize the unconscious man. This was no easy feat in such a small and crowded space. Using 3 plane seats as an impromptu bed, the doctors laid Tom out and got to work. Priority 1 was positioning Tom to fully open his airway to ensure oxygen traveled to his brain. Soon, the energy on the plane shifted from panicked to hopeful. The doctors fell into a natural pattern, each covering different tasks. "He had a strong but very, very low pulse rate, which we were worried about," said Dr. Jeffrey Aycock, who assisted. Maggie stood by while the doctors worked on her husband. They were able to reassure her quickly. Dr. Aycock said, "We knew that he was going to be okay from his stable blood pressure counts." Though they agreed that Tom's life wasn't in danger, they couldn't agree about what caused the attack. One doctor attributed the scare to mixing alcohol with medication. However, Dr. Aycock disagreed. He felt Tom's alcohol consumption wasn't enough to cause a reaction. Instead, he believed Tom was suffering from dehydration. Disagreements aside, they worked as a team to make Tom well. The doctors administered oxygen to help revive the patient. Meanwhile, the rest of the plane passengers held their breath and watched it all unfold. Meanwhile, the crew was there to help. First, they brought the doctors their medical bags, and then they made sure the pilots were up to date in case an emergency landing was necessary. 10 tense minutes later, Tom's pulse increased. His eyes flickered open, and he gaped at the 5 concentrated faces hovering above him. One of the doctors gave him an aspirin. Maggie was flooded with relief. Shaken but okay, Tom spent the remainder of the flight soothing Maggie. The plane landed within minutes, and medical personnel were standing by at the airport, ready to whisk Tom off to the hospital. But he declined. Instead, he headed off to see his own doctor. Southwest Airlines issued a statement following Tom's health scare. "We're beyond grateful for the aid provided by several medical professionals to stabilize a passenger. There is no convenient time for a medical emergency, but the situation could have been catastrophic had it not been for their fellow passengers. I just feel like God was hovering over the plane with the number of doctors there," Maggie confessed. There's nothing quite like exploring new places and meeting new people. Unfortunately, traveling anywhere often involves a trip to the airport, which can be stressful. Between the long waits and the pressure to make it there on time, flying can be a real ordeal. Tom related to one woman's brush with danger. China Murray was just one of hundreds of people waiting for her American Airlines flight at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Eager to return home to her husband, pictured here with China, and tired from her travels, she hurriedly found her gate and sat down. Then she noticed something unusual. A man lay sprawled out on the airport floor. It was clear something was wrong, China recalled later in a Facebook post. I just didn't know what, so she rushed over to find out. China asked the man, whose name was Will, a few questions. She never shared exactly what he told her, but after their conversation, she knew there was something she needed to do: call for medical assistance. Then Will shared something else with her. Over and over again, she told her he was afraid he was going to miss his flight while waiting for the airport medical team to come assist him. China wrote, "That's when she realized exactly what was going on. Will was autistic." China determined, and the overwhelming stress of traveling alone had made him very uncomfortable. "This realization triggered me to switch gears," she wrote. Most other people would have left Will waiting for the medical team, but not China. Instead, she assured her new airport pal that all was well. She'd make sure he boarded his plane before takeoff, and she didn't stop there. Together, the duo called Will's mom to let her know he wasn't feeling well and seeing the medical team at Dallas Airport. China said Will's mother explained that her son was indeed autistic, confirming China's hunch. When the medical team arrived, China and the staff at American Airlines discussed the best way to make sure Will was in good condition to continue with his flight. Unfortunately, they were worried about his health and his ability to remain in such a cramped space. The medical team said he needed to eat and have something to drink, China wrote, and they were worried he would get sick again and didn't know if he should fly. Did this mean Will would miss his flight? If the typical stressed out, in a hurry traveler had been the one to first talk to Will, he might have ended up grounded. China, however, was no ordinary traveler. She wanted to make sure Will was safe. "I worked with American Airlines and the medical team at Dallas," China wrote, "and told them I would change my flight, grab some lunch with him, and make sure he got on his flight okay." In response, American Airlines helped out by facilitating Shayna's flight transfer free of charge. "American didn't charge me a dime for the flight change," she wrote. "The airline took another above and beyond action too." China added that American Airlines even called me when Will and I were eating lunch together to let me know his gate changed. Everyone with the power to help came together to make sure one frightened Will made his flight. Finally, after a meal and pleasant conversation, China walked Will to his gate. American Airlines took over from there, and the gate clerk made sure he boarded safely to go see his mom for Christmas. Just as China, pictured here with her husband, promised, Will made his flight. Later, she beautifully reflected on her hectic day at the airport. "Today was not at all what I pictured it would be," she wrote. "It turned out to be so much better." Her account of the day continued. "I had an amazing lunch with a wonderful young man who had a heart of gold from Louisville, Kentucky. There's no denying it, airports are stressful. They're loud, crowded, and at times they feel like a labyrinth no map can navigate you through. But China sacrificed her easy traveling experience and spent more time in the chaos for a stranger. That's pretty amazing." Of course, China couldn't have done it alone, and she acknowledged everyone who played a big role in getting Will on his flight. "American Airlines handled the situation with such professionalism and care," she wrote. "The medical team was also just so amazing." Most importantly, China acknowledged the truth everyone could stand to hear. Every once in a while, we all need a little help, regardless of disability, age, or social status. Thanks for making my day, Will. Although China wouldn't likely ever see Will again, the day she spent with him might have changed her whole life, and his. It just goes to show you that a little kindness and sacrifice can go a long way. Did you enjoy today's story? Let us know what you think about it in the comments. If you believe this story was amazing, don't hesitate to share it with your buddies. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you'll never miss your daily dose of incredible stories.